Hello, Chattanooga. You're listening to 92.7 FM, Nooga Radio, NoogaRadio.com. Clutch with Keon Rose. And picks today. Time to do the picks today. We got a lot of football ground to cover, a lot of NFL stuff, a lot of college stuff. I will wind up talking about at some point Skip Bayless and his Gordon Hayward tweet, which I talked about a little bit when he first tweeted it. And more players are getting on him for having tweeted essentially about Gordon Hayward's injury and the ramifications of that injury while Gordon Hayward was yet to even be carted off the basketball court. And also the coaching problem in the SEC, right? Which does appear to be an actual problem. I don't think that the SEC is somehow a worse league, but I do think that the SEC does have some kind of a coaching problem. They do. So before we get into all of those things, let's talk about Georgia, though, because Georgia's throwing a wrench into the plans of the College Football Playoff Committee, and they have not even begun to meet yet. I don't know who the members will be this year because the panel tends to change. The panel has changed a few times already. One year we had, I don't know. It's like watching American Idol. It's like watching one of those, I don't know, The Voice. I don't watch any of those shows, but it's like watching one of those shows and then the judges change all the time. But the judges are all famous people, right? Like we had 1 year in the college football playoff where Condoleezza Rice was one of the hold on, we got a call coming in. Caller, you're on the air.
Hey, Keon, sorry, I hate to interrupt you. Just want to let you know there's a major accident on a 153 going northbound past Hicks and Pike. So once you go past Hicks and Pike, you start to head towards North Point Boulevard at that intersection. There's been a pretty major crash there. So just wanted to let you know. Thank you. Bye.
All right. That's a news update from our news director, Russell Stroud. He's out there putting in all the work to make sure that you know exactly where all the accidents are here in Chattanooga. So make sure that you avoid bad accidents. How about that? And if we have any more news reports, I'm sure Russ will call in and let us know. But the thing with Georgia is that you're throwing a wrench into the plans of the committee, right? Like the committee, 1 year consisted of Condoleezza Rice, who big college football fan. Who knew? Who actually knew, right? And she's a very smart logistical person, so I feel like that's not a bad pick for her. I don't know all of what Condoleezza Rice knew about college football, but in terms of she's sitting down, she's watching the games, and she's capable of figuring out who stinks and doesn't deserve to be in the playoff, fine. Like that, I don't have any problem with that whatsoever. Andrew Luck's dad, Oliver Luck, was on the committee 1 year. And then we've had a rotating cast of people. And so this year, I suspect, we will have more people in this year and some people out. And I like that the committee changes. However, the changes make it so that you don't have a set way that the committee views things, right? Because I remember the very first year we made a big point of emphasis on gotta win your conference championship. And then last year, Ohio State gets in and they don't win it. Right? Like they don't have the best record in their conference. They don't win the conference title. But I thought, well, this makes sense because I thought of all the teams in the Big Ten, and I know that everybody liked Penn State, and I know that Michigan State was good. I still thought Ohio State was the best team in the Big Ten, and I'm glad that they made the playoff. Now they didn't play like it once they got there, but I'm glad they made the playoff because I thought, well, that's the right decision from the committee. The committee is going to have to make another hard decision if Georgia winds up winning out. Right? If Alabama wins the conference title, but Georgia beats everybody else but Alabama, you're the committee. You still have to make the decision on who the best team is. And you're hard-pressed to make an argument that it's somehow not some combination of Alabama, Clemson, Georgia, and insert fourth team here, because like that spot to me is still very much open. And I'm not even guaranteeing the Georgia spot either, but Georgia's got a schedule that they can win out in and have not shown any signs of slipping up. They have showed zero signs of slipping up. So I don't know, if you are the committee, which is a bigger nightmare for you. The fact that you've got 18 or 19 teams that are still very much in it, right? Like, you got to look at Notre Dame as a possibility. You've got to look at TCU as a possibility, right? I feel like you've got to look at Washington. I mean, there's a whole lot of qualified, capable schools, and you've only got 4 spots. And I don't know if this is now the tolling of the bell for expanding the college football playoff. I never once imagined that this was going to be something that only remained at 4 teams. It can't. It can't. The decision is too hard, right? The decision was almost easier when you had to decide between 2 teams. The more teams you allow in, the more possibility of deserving people there will be. I mean, we see this with the NCAA tournament. Adding more teams is not going to fix the problem of whether or not we are more certain of this. But one thing I'll tell you, I'm rooting for Georgia for a couple of reasons. One, they are incredibly fun to watch. They are fun to watch play football. They are fun to watch play offense. They are fun to watch play defense. They hammer you in the running game. And usually teams that hammer you in the running game tend to be very boring to watch. The issue with Georgia is that they are ripping off 40, 50-yard runs multiple times a game, and it is thrilling, and it is about as exciting a thing as there is in college football right now. The other reason why I would be rooting for Georgia is I legitimately like the carnage. I mean, carnage is good for this show. I don't know if you've noticed, but anytime something is wild, anytime something is crazy, that's the best shows that we have, right? Carnage is not just great for this show. Carnage is great for radio, end of sentence. Carnage is great for the media, end of sentence. And I think a lot of media outlets, and we can just go general, like not even just sports, but a lot of media outlets love to sensationalize stories. I don't like to sensationalize stories. So when the story comes to me already sensational, but yeah, I'm not running away from that one, right? I'm not backing off of that one. That's great. That's fun. That's what fills the show. So I'm rooting for Georgia on, they're legitimately fun to watch. And the more they win, the more I get to see them. So, there's that. But then there's a carnage-based aspect. I am rooting for the thing that makes my job better. I am rooting for the thing that makes my job a far more entertaining version of my job. And you know what? So should you. Clutch with Keon Rose on Nooga Radio and 92.7 FM. So that is, to me, a very interesting conversation. How difficult is Georgia going to make this on the committee? And is the committee going to make a choice where you have 2 SEC schools inside the college football playoff? It's the nightmare that we talked about originally, and it wasn't going to happen initially, right? And I remember early on, there were a lot of pundits that were like, well, you can't have 2 schools from one conference inside the playoff because they'll cannibalize each other, right? Like, they'll beat each other. They'll knock each other out of playoff contention. And that's sort of true, but every college football conference outside of the Big 12 has divisions. They all have divisions, all the Power 5 conferences. So usually what ends up happening is you could wind up in a division where you don't play anybody on the other side until the title game, which is what's happening with Georgia. They're in the East, Bama's in the West, won't meet up till Atlanta. If Georgia doesn't lose to anybody in the East, and they're in the East, so no, and Alabama doesn't lose to anybody in the West, and they're Alabama, so unlikely, then it's going to be difficult to say whether or not Georgia's going to make this thing difficult for everybody. I hope they do. That's more fun. That's better to talk about. Because if they make this more difficult for everybody, those are like a litany of ways they can make this more difficult. Like, what if Georgia wins out and beats Alabama in Atlanta? Then what? Because you can't say Alabama's not in. They're clearly the best team in the nation. And even if they were to lose to Georgia, they would still be the best team in the nation. So what are you going to say? What are you going to say? I don't know. What if Bama loses to Auburn and then loses to Georgia? Then what? Because you still can't, to me, you still can't say no to Bama. Like, they're still head and shoulders better than a lot of teams. And if Alabama were to lose 2 games, that doesn't suddenly make TCU better than them. That wouldn't make Notre Dame better than them. And both of those schools are really good. Both of those schools are really good. Clutch with Keon Rose on Nooga Radio, noogaradio.com, on 92.7 FM. Next, we're going to move on to the next story because it's still related to the SEC in college football, and it is surrounding a lot of coaches who are on hot seat patrol. It's surrounding a lot of coaches who are simply being unsuccessful. The SEC does have a coaching problem, and it is a coaching problem of the SEC's own creation, because I don't want to say the SEC makes lazy hires. Lazy is not the word that I would use. But unadventurous? Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. The SEC is chief of the unadventurous hire. A lot of SEC schools hire coaches and assistant coaches inside this same league. And I don't get it. I don't. Like, for instance, could we have a higher level of South Carolina? Could we not have a better version of South Carolina than the version of South Carolina that we currently hold? And that version of South Carolina, by the way, is, I believe, 4-2. So it's not like we're watching some awful, awful version of South Carolina, even though they're not great. They play in the East and they win the games in front of them. I'm not going to blame the kids for that, but this is not a great version of South Carolina. Let's be completely honest. South Carolina has done this twice now. A coach coached at Florida, was available, was hired by South Carolina. Right? They've done this twice now. And now, here they are doing it again with Will Muschamp. Except Will Muschamp's not even as accomplished as Steve Spurrier. Will Muschamp was failing at Florida. That's why they fired him. And was immediately rehired inside the SEC. The SEC, I think, would do itself a lot of favors to be adventurous, to hire guys who are on the up and coming, maybe even groom guys, right? When you look at the blueprint of what Oklahoma has done, Oklahoma University, that's right, Big 12. Oklahoma found Bob Stoops as a young assistant, groomed him, hired him, and he was the head coach forever. Bob Stoops steps down. They pick up Lincoln Riley and don't really miss a beat. Lincoln Riley looks like more than a capable coach. Now, he's got the talent there. But let's be clear now. Oklahoma is not a hotbed of recruiting, right? The advantage that Oklahoma has is that they are next to Texas. The talent that goes to Oklahoma largely comes from Texas. It's not a hotbed of recruiting, and they have found a way to recruit, and they have found a way to win with the guys that they have. Picked up Lincoln Riley and have not really missed a beat, right? Lost some disappointing games for sure, right? They for the life of me, I'm never going to understand how it is that they wound up losing to was it K-State? The way they wound up losing to K-State? Not going to understand that. But they groomed somebody to be the head coach, right? That's that story of preparedness. The SEC does not deal with stories of preparedness, and we have a league. We hire guys inside of our league, and then when we hire guys outside of the league, look, it's guys with suspect backgrounds, and I don't want to seem mean or hurtful, but Butch Jones had a suspect background. And I remember reading several columns when Butch Jones was hired that Butch Jones is, quote, a used car salesman, and that he sells you on these ideas, these big, grand ideas of winning and being together, but not the specifics. And that it's going to ultimately backfire in your face. Tennessee went ahead and did it anyway, and now it's backfiring in our face. I don't know what to tell you except for, I guess Buddy was right. When I read the original column, it just felt like sour grapes. Here's a guy complaining just to complain. But like, why don't you go out there and hire anybody good? Right? And no, not John Gruden. Not John Gruden. And look, I like John Gruden. I think that somebody in the SEC should hire John Gruden if John Gruden wants to come back and coach and would be willing to do that, because John Gruden is fun and has a personality. And again, when things are fun, my job is better. And when my job is better, hopefully your time is better. That's how this all works. It's like trickle-down economics. So John Gruden would be nice, except that John Gruden is John Gruden, which means he's retired from coaching. It means that he works at ESPN. He's a broadcaster. He gets to continue to watch the game that he loves. He continues to talk about the game that he loves. He coaches his son's high school team every now and then. And there's no pressure. Nobody wants to walk into a pressure cooker. Though I imagine at the college football level, John Gruden would show up and I think would be like immediately successful in a way that Jim Harbaugh shows up and is immediately successful at things because he's just got one of those personalities. But I don't think that John Gruden's ever going to leave all the money that he is paid to do Monday Night Football. And I don't think that he would ever leave the cushy spot of, look, I'm getting paid and no one's trying to fire me every day. There's not a new scandal that I'm trying to stave off and avoid. There's not something around the corner that's going to take me out, because that's where this all goes. And I just think it's bizarre, and I think it's strange that in the SEC, especially among the middle of the pack and lower schools, coaching hires seems to be something that is not possible to get correct. Why? God only knows why. It seems like something that you can't get correct because the schools that are doing really well have managed to hit on this. Right? Alabama hit on Saban. That was a good, solid connection of the bat there. I think Georgia's really found something special with Kirby Smart, right? And I know that the Kirby Smart hire came as a direct result of the thing that I am talking about, which is hiring a coordinator or an assistant from another school in an attempt to gain their magic. Because that's what I think. When you hire Kirby Smart from Georgia, you are trying to gain, or from Alabama, you are trying to gain defensively something that Alabama has. If you hire an assistant from Alabama offensively, and God only knows why you would have done that in the last 5 years, you are trying to gain something offensively that Alabama has. Right? But I'll give you my coaches that I like in the SEC. I like Derek Mason. I think that Derek Mason hasn't got a ton to work with, but I like him a lot. I like Dan Mullen a lot. I like Nick Saban a lot. I like Kirby Smart a lot. If you find that you are unsure about a coach, he's probably not going to be successful in the SEC. Might be successful elsewhere, but you play too many schools who are good at taking you out to have a guy that you're very unsure about for very long. And that's been our situation with Butch Jones, right? Let's say he hasn't been outright awful, at least not until this season. He hasn't been outright awful, but there's a lot there that you've been worried about. And now there appears to be some level of talent depletion at Tennessee at specific spots, right? You don't have experience at the quarterback position. You don't have a ton of experience at the offensive line position. Pick a spot on that line. You don't have a ton of experience in the secondary. So Butch is getting exposed a little bit. The talent's not there at this moment. It's very young and undeveloped. And Butch Jones is struggling against schools that he shouldn't be struggling against and losing against schools he shouldn't be losing against. Right? And then as a result, almost, you end up letting guys like Will Muschamp off the hook. Will Muschamp's team couldn't put the football in the ocean, much less the end zone. Could not find a way to make that happen. They're like offensively inert. They play fantastic defense. They're inert offensively. And the same thing for Jim McElwain. And that's been his problem. And at some point, you're in the SEC, you go out there, whoever the big name coach is, you go out there and you make that hire. You make that hire. Because all the other conferences do it. Oregon went out and got Taggart. You just go out there and get it done. Clutch with Keon Rose on 92.7 FM, Nooga Radio, NoogaRadio.com.
Traffic, news, and information. Nooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4 and 92.7 FM. 3, 2, 1. Chattanooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4. 92.7 FM's news now.
Despite statements from concerned citizens, the County Commission on Wednesday voted 7-2 to approve rezoning for construction and debris landfill in Harrison. The only two commissioners to vote against were Chester Bankston and Joe Graham. This is just the first step in permitting for the landfill. There was some opposition. Complainants wearing green shirts were unhappy with the placement of the proposed landfill. A man who is a victim of a shooting at the In-Town Suites on Lee Highway is now a defendant in a drug case. Joshua Eaker, who's 28, appeared before General Sessions Court Judge Gary Starnes. The police say they found half a kilogram of meth under his passenger seat in his car and $4,300 on his person. Investigators believe that he was shot when a drug deal went wrong on the second floor of the In-Town Suites. Russell Stroud, Nooga Radio News Talk 92.7 now.
Traffic, news, and information. Nooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4 and 92.7 FM. Broadcasting live to over 1 million souls in Chattanooga, the Tennessee Valley, and beyond on frequency modulation 92.7. Sean Hannity. 25,000 watts on Digital FM 95.3 HD4. CBS Radio News. NASCAR, Bloomberg Markets, David Tulis, streaming strong at NoogaRadio.com. Live on YouTube and Facebook. Nooga Radio, News Talk 92.7. Chattanooga Radio.
Goss Insurance. Yes, we are local. And no, we don't have an 800 number. In fact, our mobile numbers are on our business cards. We live, work, play, and worship in Chattanooga, and we would love to help with your insurance. Business, auto, home, life insurance. Call now, save money. Call Goss Insurance for all your insurance needs. Goss Insurance, 875-2500. 875-2500.
Nooga Radio, Digital FM 95.3 HD4 and 92.7 FM knows your opinion is important. So call 800-8949. Agree or disagree. Call 423-800-8949. 800-8949. Nooga Radio, 92.7 FM and 95.3 HD4. News Talk Nooga Radio.
We'll get to the SEC picks in a second. Clutch with Keon Rose on 92.7 FM, Nooga Radio, and NoogaRadio.com. We'll get to those picks in a second because it's an interesting weekend of SEC football. And, you know, the further in the season we go, obviously, these weekends get more and more interesting. Story on its hands. And it's got a story on its hands because the story broke earlier about essentially a fight club that is in the players' locker room. Right? That you had two players, like on Twitter, a video was posted on Twitter of two players boxing in the Clemson locker room, right? It's unclear as to which players it is. The video is not very clear, but it is obvious that it's two players. You can't tell who it is. And you had the players boxing, and you had some other players standing around cheering on the fight. And this was reported, by the way, by The Score, Michael Amato. And Michael Amato pointed out that the story that broke a year ago concerning LSU and a locker room, not a locker room fight, but a parking lot fight involving Leonard Fournette and another LSU teammate, where they were fighting in the parking lot. But Leonard Fournette called it slap boxing. Like they were basically just slapping each other. And that was what was going on. To me, this cannot be remotely shocking, right? This does not speak of organizational incompetence or corruption of any kind. Not unless Dabo Swinney was also there watching the fighting and even cheering it on. What this reeks of is somehow a lack of supervision, because I have no idea how it is that a bunch of trainers and assistant coaches are not there when the guys are in the locker room, and then they are organizing fights with one another and then fighting, and somehow nobody knows. That seems bizarre and odd to me. That does. But the fact that a bunch of guys, if you put a bunch of guys together filled with testosterone and think to yourself, well, no, they're not going to fight here, not even for fun. You're crazy. Young guys fight all the time. And sometimes for no reason. And sometimes for a reason that we forget about later. I remember when I was in college. A Christian college, right? We were in the dorms. And some guys started a fight club in the dorms. And, like none of the administrators knew about it. Because guys just like to fight. Like, you just test yourself against people, right? Now, for me, I always liked boxing. I like the fact that if I'm fighting somebody and I'm getting that work, right? Like I am just getting it kicked in, that someone can step in and save me. That I like. I'm not trying to actually die. That's not. And when you end up in a lot of these unsanctioned, we're just gonna fight in a basement. That winds up being the thing that is possible to happen. Is somebody takes it a step too far, and to be clear, somebody always takes it a step too far. Someone takes it a step too far, and then what have you got? You've got somebody that's seriously injured, and nobody wants to talk about why. So it is concerning that there is a fight club in Clemson's locker room, but it's concerning in large part because who was there to witness it? Why was it happening? And why did no administrators of any particular variety seem to know? And how it all was that possible? That seems strange. Dabo Swinney will address it either later today or tomorrow. But here's the thing about football players that is inherently fascinating to me, and I will never, ever, ever, ever get past this. You want guys to be aggressive, right? You want the aggressive, angry guy who likes to fight for no good reason. You want that guy. That's the guy you're looking for. But when that guy exhibits behavior of the person that likes to fight for no good reason, oh, no, wait, whoa, what are you doing there, buddy? Like, I understand football exists as a place to channel that aggression, but let's not get it twisted here. These guys are filled with aggression, and you only play football once a week. You can't have it two ways. You can't have the aggressive player that's young, right? Like he's not even 21 years old yet, right? He's 18, 19 years old, maybe 20. He's young. He's aggressive. That's why you recruited him to play football. And then expect that guy to know how to control his aggression and want to. You just don't have that. Right? Not unless we're talking about the kicker. Not unless we're talking about the punter. You otherwise do not have that. Even then, you've got some punters that maybe you don't want to fight them. Maybe you don't want to fight them. Like these Australian rules football kids are just bonkers. Anyway, yeah, that's the way that it's kind of working out. So I don't know what to do if you're necessarily in the situation that Dabo Swinney is in. Because you are going to have to explain how it is that you didn't know this was happening. Right? But you put 50 to 60 large guys filled with testosterone in a room. You put all those guys in a room. And say to them, yeah, don't fight each other. Good luck with that. Good luck with that if you're not willing to stand there and supervise it. And that's the thing that's weird to me is that how did nobody know? Somebody had to know. Somebody had to know and not care that much because the guys are fighting each other with gloves. Right? So maybe the players went out and bought gloves so as not to destroy each other's hands, which is smart, I guess. But there's a level of organization that appeared to go into this. So this is organizational control. Clutch with Keon Rose on 92.7 FM, Nooga Radio, NoogaRadio.com. CBS Sports column. Dennis Dodd is the writer. And he's asking if Notre Dame is for real. And I think that says everything you need to know about Notre Dame, that we're not actually sure. Now, they appear to be legit. Like if you go down Notre Dame's schedule, that appears to be a legitimate football team. And I did catch some criticism, by the way, early in the year for coming down too hard on Notre Dame and for underestimating Notre Dame. I can take some correction. I'll eat my little bit of crow. I was wrong about Notre Dame. I am sorry, Notre Dame fans. We had some comments on the YouTube. They were not pleased. I am sorry, Notre Dame fans. But, I mean, you got a quality victory over Michigan State. Lost to Georgia, but again, A, who isn't losing to Georgia, and B, it was a very close game. They only lost by 1 point. And everyone else in front of them, they've beaten pretty soundly. Right? Beat Temple 49-16. Lost to Georgia 2019. Beat Boston College 49-20. Beat Michigan State 38-18. 52-17. Beat North Carolina 33-10. And like none of these schools outside of Georgia are like actually good schools. But I will say this, though. All right, now they've got themselves a test. 7:30 Saturday night on NBC, they're playing the Trojans. And I think that is a very good test to go up against Sam Darnold, test your defense against him, see if you're going to be able to outscore the USC Trojans attack. But I do think that the Fighting Irish are legitimate. I do. I'm just saying it says everything about that school as of late that they're a one-loss school at this point in the season, and you have to ask the question, like, are they actually legit? Now, being an independent program, they get to arrange their own schedule. Like if Notre Dame is successful in this college football playoff era, what I want to know is does that mean that we get to see more independent teams? And not any team can be an independent team, right? Notre Dame is specifically popular enough, rich enough, and good enough that they get to be an independent team. Because even if Notre Dame football is bad, they make money. They're a brand. Even when they're not good, they matter. And that's the biggest compliment that you can pay to any university. When they're not good, you still think about them, right? Like look at Texas football. Texas is not good. And you still have to think about Texas a little bit because one day they might be good and nobody wants to be the group of people that was surprised. Like, oh, wow. Right? Like nobody wants to be that with Notre Dame either. Like when Notre Dame is not playing well, nobody wants to be the group of people that's just shocked that they're actually good. Now, the thing with them is that they arrange their own schedule. And what this means is they are playing USC now, they played Georgia early in the year. And what we know about the college football playoff is this. If you're going to lose early. Right? So you got a couple of challenges between, before and roughly at the midway point of the season. Toughest games left on your schedule. You end the season with Stanford. And you've got Miami, which I can't imagine if you were Notre Dame, you thought that was actually going to be a challenge when you scheduled it. But and you've got Miami. So USC, Miami, and Stanford. And I'm saying the way that Notre Dame's playing right now, those are winnable games. Winnable games. I mean, those are good football teams, but they're not unbeatable. And again, yeah, Notre Dame has not played the greatest schools. But the schools they have beaten, they have stomped out. They have stomped them out. And their only loss is against undefeated Georgia. The question as to whether or not Notre Dame is for real is answered with yes. And the question as to whether or not Notre Dame being able to arrange their own schedule in the way that they have in the college football playoff era, does that mean that we get led to more independent schools? And the answer to that question is maybe. It's very, very possible. That's all I'm saying. Now we're going to go to start doing the picks here. It's my last show of the week. So on the last show of the week, I always do the picks. Right? I do the SEC picks, and then I give you a rundown of the NFL to end the show. And then I make, the last pick of the night is the Thursday night football game, which will be tonight. So we'll talk about all of those things. Thursday night football on Amazon Prime. Finally got it to work on my phone. So we'll see how it looks, and I'll tell you what it's like to watch Thursday night football on Amazon Prime. But let's get into the SEC picks here. SEC Week 8 preview here on Clutch with Keon Rose on 92.7 FM, Nooga Radio, and NoogaRadio.com. Missouri is playing Idaho. Idaho is 2-4. Missouri is 1-5, in large part because they spent the greater part of their season getting smacked around by the rest of the SEC. They are 14-point favorites in this game, and I will agree with Vegas on this when I do think that Missouri is capable of running through Idaho, because Missouri's offense has been on full display in a lot of these games that they have lost. They do not defend people, and this is why they lose. A great example of this, of course, is the Kentucky game, in which they scored a great many touchdowns, but gave up far more touchdowns than they themselves scored. And it seems impossible for a school to be that bad at defense. And something's got to give there, man. So they've got to work on that defense. I don't know who you bring in to just change the culture of your whole defense and who you have to recruit to make that better. But you are wasting some really good Drew Lock performances because you can't defend a soul. And when it feels like me and 10 friends could go out and put up numbers on you, that's not good. It's not good. The next game on the docket is the game of the day, the CBS game of the day. Tennessee football versus Alabama. It's the third Saturday in November or in October, so it is Alabama week at 3:30. I don't know why this is the game of the week. I don't know what power CBS has to flex out of these games, but if I saw this one coming, I would have flexed out of this game 2 or 3 weeks ago because it didn't look like Tennessee football was going to be good. Now it looks like Tennessee football can't score points. They haven't scored in about 10 quarters of football, and they are playing Alabama, who is tough to score on anyway. Vegas has Alabama as 36-point favorites. And right now, I am hard-pressed to come up with a very good reason as to why it is that that's not true. Right? The over-under is also at 50, so there is some level of assumption that Tennessee will score touchdowns in this game. I don't know why that's a safe assumption to make, right? I don't bet. But if I had to bet in this game, I'm betting the over, but the over being Alabama's going to score all 50 by themselves. This is going to be a slaughter. This is going to be bad. Right? And I don't want to be the person that comes out here and just drives Tennessee football through the mud like this. I don't take any joy in it. I'm not thrilled by it, but this is not a good football team. And I did my power rankings on Tuesday, and I shocked myself. I had Tennessee as the last team in the entire SEC because I'm looking at it and I'm going, who could Tennessee actually beat? Maybe I took it a step too far by having Tennessee below Missouri, but at least I know Missouri can score. I don't like if Tennessee played Arkansas today, you sure they win? If they played Vandy, are you certain that they win? They already lost to Florida. They already lost to South Carolina. They play Kentucky. If they played LSU, Auburn, A&M, Miss State, Ole Miss, are you certain that they win? Because I'm not. I'm not. Right? So, the issue here is not whether or not I'm taking Alabama. Do I think Alabama will cover the spread of 36 points? Yes. And I don't feel happy saying it, but yes. I hope that Tennessee pulls off the upset of the ages because Tennessee, because this is what would save Butch Jones' job right here. Because I feel like Butch Jones is going to be out of Tennessee by some form or fashion. I don't think that they're going to do the midseason firing, which would be smart. I think it makes no sense to fire a guy midseason in a season where you're not competing for the playoff. Who even knows if you're gonna make bowl season at this point? Midseason firings lower morale, and nothing says to the world, "Hey, we are a dumpster fire. We are a dumpster fire." Quite like firing your coach in the middle of the year. Wait till the season is over and then let him go if you got to let him go, or let the contract play out if you just want to save money. One of those two ways, but Butch Jones is going to be out of Tennessee at some point, and it's not going to be Butch Jones wanting to leave Tennessee. I don't think. Kentucky versus Miss State starts at 4 on the SEC network. 12-point favorites are the Mississippi State Bulldogs. I would tend to agree. Look, I like Kentucky. I'm a big fan of Kentucky's offense. They can truly and honestly score. They have put together a very good season so far. And being one of the schools in the East that, if you had to pick a dark horse to win the East, right? Because the favorites were going in Tennessee, Florida, Georgia. Tennessee was more of a dark horse in a lot of people's eyes. But Kentucky should have been right there. Because they are capable of putting points on the board. And anytime you can score against anybody, that means that you can win against anybody. They're not going to beat Mississippi State here, though. I think Mississippi State defensively is a very good football team. And Mississippi State can also score. So it's not going to be one of these lopsided situations. It's going to be a close game, but I think Mississippi State pulls it out. 7:15 on ESPN, LSU versus Ole Miss. LSU is 5-2. Ole Miss is 3-3. And Ole Miss is giving 3 points or giving 7 points to LSU, even though LSU is the road team. Here's the thing that I find interesting about LSU. That even though LSU pulled off that very surprising comeback victory against Auburn last week, there is absolutely no guarantee whatsoever that LSU is capable of beating Ole Miss in this game. They struggled against Florida for whatever reason. And when an offense is capable of getting creative, and if a quarterback is capable of making you pay for missing assignments, LSU is vulnerable. And Shea Patterson is exactly such a quarterback. So when I look at this matchup, I go, yeah, I'm going to take LSU because I'm smart. But I don't think that this game has got a very big gap in between it. I think that it's a very close football game. Vegas has it at 7. I think it could possibly be closer than that. I think Ole Miss could probably cover that spread. I do. And the last game on the docket, we got a short SEC docket this week. Last game on the docket, 7:30 p.m. on the SEC network. Arkansas versus Auburn in a game that is fundamentally uninteresting to its core. Should have been an interesting game. If you had asked me at the beginning of the year whether or not this would be an interesting game, I would have told you very possibly. But Auburn at 5-2 looks very good. And I know that they lost last week in disappointing fashion to LSU, but that's in large part because they tempted the karma monster and then got bit. but also in large part because in the second half of that game, for whatever reason, they could not figure out LSU's defense and never managed to ever score again. I believe they scored a field goal, actually. I believe they scored 3 points. They never scored a touchdown again in that game. Could not figure out LSU's second half defense. Ed Orgeron made the adjustments necessary, and LSU is capable of coming on as they are capable of doing in games. Arkansas is not that team. Arkansas is Arkansas's worst enemy. Nobody has created a better Arkansas defense than whatever play calling it is that Brett Bielema and Arkansas are putting together. Arkansas is Arkansas's own worst enemy. They are 2-4 this year. They are a team that is inexplicably too talented to be as bad as they are. And yet here they are being as bad as they are. Vegas has the game at 15.5 point favorites for the Auburn Tigers. I would agree. I would say that's not even big enough. I think Auburn wins by 3 touchdowns because Auburn, not Arkansas, not only does Arkansas fall behind in games early, because once upon a time, if you recall, Arkansas used to be the team that could not figure out how to play a full game of football. Their first half and second half differentials from last year are terrible. They fall off a cliff in the second half of every single game that they play. Now, Arkansas can't even put together 4 quarters of football. Arkansas can't put together 2 quarters of football, much less 4. So yeah, I look at them and I go, wow. Do I really think that they can score enough to not be beaten by 3 touchdowns here? No, I actually don't. I think Auburn beats them bad. And those are your SEC picks for the weekend. This is Clutch with Keon Rose, and then on 92.7 FM, Nooga Radio, and NoogaRadio.com. Second hour of the show coming up. We've got some NBA talk. And I guess we gotta talk about Tennessee some more. And the NFL picks are in on the way. Clutch with Keon Rose. Next.
The Tennessee Valley's news talk leader. Nooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4 and 92.7 FM. 3, 2, 1. Chattanooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4. 92.7 FM's news now.
Despite statements from concerned citizens, the county commission on Wednesday voted 7-2 to approve rezoning for construction and debris landfill in Harrison. The only 2 commissioners to vote against were Chester Bankston and Joe Graham. This is just the first step in permitting for the landfill. There was some opposition. Complainants wearing green shirts were unhappy with the placement of the proposed landfill. A man who was a victim of a shooting at the In-Town Suites on Lee Highway is now a defendant in a drug case. Joshua Eaker, who's 28, appeared before General Sessions Court Judge Gary Starnes. The police say they found half a kilogram of meth under his passenger seat in his car and $4,300 on his person. The investigators believe that he was shot when a drug deal went wrong on the second floor of the In-Town Suites. Russell Stroud, Duke Radio News Talk 92.7 now.
The Tennessee Valley's news talk leader. Nooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4 and 92.7 FM.
Our hour news at noon and 9 being brought to you by Greg's Sandwich Works, featuring the best cuts of meats for your sandwich. Greg's Super Spuds, wraps and the most delicious salads in Chattanooga. Greg's Sandwich Works, 6337 East Brainerd Road, Chattanooga.
As an independent agent, Goss represents more than 50 of the leading companies. Goss does the shopping and you save. Goss Insurance for your auto, business, home, and life insurance. 875-2500 Goss Insurance.
Hey, dude, check this out. Have you ever seen one so big?
Whoa, look at the size of that.
Look at this little itty-bitty one.
Wow, that's really small.
They have them big, small, and everything in between. You'll always find the biggest variety of knives at the knife shop at Frost Cutlery in Ottawa. We're talking about over 40 brands of knives, including Benchmade, WR Case & Sons, Booker, and all the Frost Cutlery brands. Now, Sam, you've been to the cutlery shop. Is it amazing?
Spectacular. The knife shop at Frost Cutlery in Ottawa. They have knives, swords, kitchen knives, ammo, and reloading supplies, plus survival gear.
It's the knife shop at Frost Cutlery. Open 7 days a week. Hey, girls, you're going to love this. We're going to the knife shop. Hey, let's not tell them they have ammo and loading supplies.
The Knife Shop at Frost Cutlery opens 7 days a week. You'll always find the biggest variety of knives. You're going to love the Knife Shop at Frost Cutlery in Ottawa. The Knife Shop.
And tell them David Tulis sent you.
Hi, this is Eric Felton. Taxes, accounting, business advice. I've got a neat brochure, 12 ways to improve your business profits. Come on by for a free consultation and we'll give you a copy. E.J. Pelton Company, 332-3339.
Cash, 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 and more cash. Watch it gush out of your TV. Rick Davis is on national TV. Wow. Golden diamonds, coins, and more riches. Rick's selling, Rick's buying, and he's on national TV. Watch him Wednesday, 11 p.m., right after the Judy O'Neill Talk Show. North Georgia Cable TV 265. You won't want to miss it. It's a mountain of cash, cash, cash. And it's catching the Hollywood spotlight. Hey, if one day hasn't got your head spinning, how about a second? Rick Davis is on Fridays, Channel 12, 10:30 a.m., right before The Price is Right. You gotta see it to believe it. Wednesday, 11 p.m., North Georgia Cable Channel 265. Friday, 10:30 a.m. on TV 12. 2 big shows every week. Rick Davis Golden Diamonds. You know where it is. Brainerd Road, Chattanooga. Cash, 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 and more cash.
If I were a rich man.
Hey, Mom.
Yes, Summer.
I know what I'd like to do for Christmas this year.
What would you like to do?
Take shoe boxes full of goodies to the homeless military veterans.
What would go into these shoe boxes?
Toothbrushes, toothpaste, dental floss, deodorant, chapsticks, shampoo, soap, hand warmers, hand sanitizer, socks, gloves, toboggans, small Bibles, blankets, snacks, and cough drops.
Where can people donate these items?
Alpine Crest Elementary School, Sonic on Hickson Pike next to Frontrunner, Chick-fil-A in Northgate Mall in Hickson, and Nooga Radio below Goss Insurance across from Bojangles on Hickson Pike.
When will we distribute the shoe boxes?
On November 10th from 11 to 12:30 and December 15th from 10:30 to 12:30 at the Community Kitchen on East 11th Street, downtown Chattanooga.
Please help us in donating these items for our shoebox campaign. No veteran should ever go homeless.
Broadcasting live to over 1 million souls in Chattanooga, the Tennessee Valley, and beyond on frequency modulation 92.7. Sean Hannity, 25,000 watts on digital FM 95.3 HD4. CBS Radio News. NASCAR, Bloomberg Markets, David Tulis, streaming strong at NoogaRadio.com. Live on YouTube and Facebook. Nooga Radio, News Talk 92.7. Chattanooga Radio.
WBLZ HD4 Ottawa, W224AZ Chattanooga,
92.7, digital FM 95.3 HD4 Chattanooga.
The White House Chief of Staff speaks out on presidential condolences to fallen American soldiers.
There's no perfect way to make that phone call.
As a white nationalist speaks in Florida, he's confronted by protesters. This is the CBS World News Roundup Late Edition. I'm Dave Barrett. After families of fallen U.S. service members were phoned by President Trump, there was controversy when a member of Congress criticized him for a conversation she overheard. Today, more talk at the White House. Stephen Portnoy says a top administration official had his say.
It stuns me.
In the briefing room for 20 minutes, the president's chief of staff voiced his anger over the controversy.
If you elect to call a family like this, it is about the most difficult thing you could imagine.
Retired General John Kelly lost his own son, a Marine, in 2010. He revealed that President Trump asked him for advice on how best to express his condolences. Kelly mentioned he hadn't received a call from Barack Obama.
That was just to simply say, I don't believe President Obama called.
Kelly said he was stunned and brokenhearted that the president's efforts to console a widow have become controversial.
I thought at least that was sacred.
Stephen Portnoy, CBS News, the White House.
Now to retired Army Colonel Jeff McCausland, a CBS military consultant.
There clearly are three stories here. One, of course, is this ongoing discussion of what the president said or didn't say about the particular words that he used in speaking to this one family. The second story, of course, is how this all got politicized, whether it was by the congressman or by the president himself. And the third story, which now I think should get more attention, is how these soldiers were in fact killed. What went on in Niger? Why were those soldiers there? Why were they ambushed? Why they didn't have adequate security?
He did not speak unimpeded at the University of Florida. When white nationalist Richard Spencer took the stage, he heard this.
We don't want your Nazi hate!
As hundreds of protesters tried to drown out Spencer.
We are stronger than you, and you all know it. That's why you are ganging up here like some kind of mob.
In that crowd in Gainesville,
I respect their right to free speech, obviously because of the First Amendment, but I think it's important to demonstrate that we don't tolerate that type of rhetoric.
Overall, 2 arrests made there today. Former President George W. Bush speaking in New York City today with this critique of politics in America.
Bigotry seems emboldened. Our politics seems more vulnerable to conspiracy theories and outright fabrication.
4 weeks since Hurricane Maria pounded Puerto Rico, President Trump sized up the federal response.
I'd say it was a 10. I'd say it was probably the most difficult when you talk about relief, when you talk about search, when you talk about all of the different levels.
He met with Puerto Rico's governor today. Power is still out to 80% of the island, but airports are back up at full capacity now. On Wall Street, the Dow gained 5, the NASDAQ fell 19. Now this.
I'm Jay Farner from Quicken Loans. A 30-year fixed-rate mortgage is 3.875%, APR 4.05%. Mortgage lender means choosing much more than just a rate. Let me ask you, does calling the company with the best client service in America, with 11 J.D. Power Awards to prove it, matter? Does calling the company that invented Rocket Mortgage, the industry's most innovative, client-focused technology, matter? Does calling the company with 17,000 plus team members who are helping to rebuild the great cities of Detroit and Cleveland matter? Of course it matters. No wonder our clients have made Quicken Loans America's #1 online lender. Call Quicken Loans today at 800-QUICKEN or go to rocketmortgage.com for the best mortgage experience on earth. That's 800-QUICKEN.
Call for cost information and conditions. Equal housing lender licensed in all 50 states. NMLSconsumeraccess.org number 3030.
Los Angeles police say they have opened an investigation into a potential sexual assault case involving Harvey Weinstein. This one goes back to 2013. The short-term fix to stabilize health insurance markets has been presented in the Senate. Co-sponsored Patty Murray, Democrat from Washington State.
It is bipartisan. We both gave on this. And I really hope all of our colleagues will work with us to get this signed into law.
The Trump administration is now pushing for Congress to end mandates and repeal taxes established under Obamacare for this bill to move forward. A softball team's fundraiser in Columbia, Louisiana featured chicken and sausage jambalaya. The Department of Health says one person may have died and more than 4 dozen others have been sickened by salmonella poisoning. Doctors worry that there could be more cases because up to 300 people may have been served that jambalaya meal. You're listening to the CBS World News Roundup.
3, 2, 1. Chattanooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4. 92.7 FM's news now.
Despite statements from concerned citizens, the county commission on Wednesday voted 7-2 to approve rezoning for construction and debris landfill in Harrison. The only 2 commissioners to vote against were Chester Bankston and Joe Graham. This is just the first step in permitting for the landfill. There was some opposition. Complainants wearing green shirts were unhappy with the placement of the proposed landfill. A man who is a victim of a shooting at the In-Town Suites on Lee Highway is now a defendant in a drug case. Joshua Eaker, who's 28, appeared before General Sessions Court Judge Gary Starnes. The police say they found half a kilogram of meth under his passenger seat in his car and $4,300 on his person. Investigators believe that he was shot when a drug deal went wrong on the 2nd floor of the In-Town Suites. Russell Stroud, Nooga Radio News Talk 92.7. Now.
Traffic, news, and information. Nooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4 and 92.7 FM. Broadcasting live to over 1 million souls in Chattanooga, the Tennessee Valley, and beyond on frequency modulation 92.7. Sean Hannity, 25,000 watts on digital FM 95.3 HD4. CBS Radio News. NASCAR, Bloomberg Markets, David Tulis, streaming strong at Noogaradio.com. Live on YouTube and Facebook. Nooga Radio, News Talk 92.7. Chattanooga Radio.
You're listening to 92.7 FM, Nooga Radio, and Noogaradio.com. Clutch with Keon Rose. Thank you for joining me today, making me just a small part of your day. It's hour number 2 of the show. And, you know, I hate sensationalist headlines. I hate things that are sensationalized. For instance, and here's a wonderful little headline from Sporting News, which is a website that I like, by the way. I'm not just stomping on Sporting News. But come on, man. Carmelo Anthony sends out cryptic tweet before facing the Knicks. He sends out a cryptic tweet before facing the Knicks. Then when you read the tweet says, "You watched me walk through hell. Now watch me walk up out it." Which is a reference to a Pusha T song. Beanie Sigel's verse on Pusha T's Keep Dealing. Look, there's nothing cryptic about that, though. Why would you word that way? There was nothing cryptic about what he said. You watched me walk through hell. You watched me be a New York Knick in the last 5 years, which I would actually accurately classify that as some level of hell. I know it wasn't mentioned in Dante's Inferno, but it has to be there somewhere. Being a New York Knick is some level of hell. As of late, anyway. Like, if you were a New York Knick while Phil Jackson was running the show, you were in some level of hell. Then he said, "Now watch me walk about it." Now he's not a Knick. I mean, what is cryptic about that? No, he didn't specifically name anybody, but he obviously doesn't like the organization. He doesn't like what they did to him, said about him, etc., etc., etc. And he's taking a shot at him. What's cryptic about that? But if you say that the tweet was cryptic, you mean you get more views. So, I don't know. Get paid. Get paid. So we're going to do the NFL picks. And then I've got a story about John Calipari. John Calipari thinks if you get rid of the one and done, you actually make Kentucky basketball and you make John Calipari better. He's right. And I'll tell you why. So let's start with Sunday, and then we wheel back around to Thursday like we do here every week. The first game on Sunday is the Cardinals and the Rams. A game that, even though I like the Rams and I like Jared Goff, and I think he's doing really well, and Todd Gurley's been actually fun to watch this year, I am so profoundly uninterested in this football game. I cannot even begin to explain it to you. But regardless, I will take the Rams. They are 3.5-point favorites. They're at home. Goff has looked good. He's looked better than Carson Palmer, who is with the Cardinals. I will say this about the Cardinals, though, that makes this game slightly more intriguing. I want to see if Adrian Peterson is for real, right? Like, do we have an Adrian Peterson that you can actually rely on to pick up tough yardage, to score touchdowns, and to be generally impossible to tackle like Adrian Peterson has been in his past? If he looks old, I'm done. I'm not sticking around for it. I'm not going to watch it. The other game starts at 1 p.m. Buccaneers, Bills over on Fox. 3-point favorites are the Bills. I like Tyrod Taylor. This is going to be weird. It's going to be crazy. You'd think that this is a game that I would actually try and tune away from and actually avoid at all costs, because Jameis Winston has been an absolute nightmare to watch play football at times. And the Bills are the Bills. But, A, I like the idea of someone else challenging for that AFC East. That's pretty fun. And also, Tyrod Taylor is kind of fun to watch. He scrambles around everywhere. There's no rhyme or reason to what it is that he's doing back there. But he's very fun to watch. I mean, he doesn't have a strong arm. He doesn't push the ball downfield. He's only thrown, 910 yards so far this season. 6 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. But between him and Shady McCoy, the Bills are vaguely entertaining to watch, and I will take the Bills in this game because I haven't been trusting Jameis lately. I can't. You've got one of the best receiving corps in football. Why do you look so inept at scoring? That doesn't seem to make sense to me. And until something about them gets righted, I'm off the Jameis bandwagon. I'm off it. Ravens, Vikings. Vikings are 5.5-point favorites, despite their quarterback being Case Keenum. And that is because Case Keenum has looked better than Joe Flacco. Who would have thought? Joe Flacco doesn't just look bad. He looks horrible. Just bad. I've never seen a quarterback where we had the conversation as to whether or not that dude was elite fall off so far, so fast, quite like Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco has 2 times as many interceptions, 8 to touchdowns, 4. And the Ravens have won a lot of games largely on the fact that their defense is opportunistic. I wouldn't say good. This is not the Ravens' defenses of old, but they are opportunistic and capable of scoring. Now, the fact that the Vikings are not a great football team, in large part because they've suffered so many injuries, does give the Ravens a chance in this game, but this Vikings defense is legitimate and real. And if Joe Flacco looks like Joe Flacco has been looking like all year, which is to say bad, then I don't see how the Ravens overcome the Vikings on this one. I'll take the Vikings plus the points. Jaguars, Colts. A game that I am interested in because first off, I enjoy watching the Jaguars play football. This sounds counterintuitive to everything that I'm about. But I enjoy watching the Jaguars play football. Their defense is lights out. Leonard Fournette is a monster. And they are content to turn around and give Leonard Fournette the ball every possession of the game. And there's something entertaining about watching a team win despite their quarterback, not because of him. Right? This is not a situation, because if you have a game manager quarterback, you're not winning despite the quarterback. He's a game manager. He does what he does. You do what you do. They score enough to win. The defense holds it down. Blake Bortles seems to be almost actively sabotaging the Jaguars, right? 5 interceptions so far this season. And yet, despite that active sabotage, the Jaguars are 3-3. Who would have thought? And I understand that the Jaguars are 3-point favorites. We might have to go higher than that, right? Like, we might actually have to go higher than that because this Jaguars defense is incredible, and I don't see how Indianapolis is going to score. They struggled to score on Tennessee, and the Titans defense is just okay. The Jaguars have a lights-out defense. And the Colts have Jacoby Brissett and tiny receivers. I'm going to go with the Jaguars, and we're going to go with the Jaguars by a lot more than 3 points. The Jets and the Dolphins are not at all interesting, but the Jets continue to win and confuse us all by becoming the best team in New York, the best New York team. And I'm not sure how it's happening, but the Dolphins don't seem to be capable of standing in the way and stopping it. I think the Jets do wind up winning the game. Look, I like Todd Bowles as a coach, so there's that. I'm glad the Jets are winning if it helps Todd Bowles, because I think he's a very good coach thrust into a very bad situation. And someone's got to save that man at some point by getting him a quarterback. Panthers, Bears. Panthers are 4-2. The Bears are 2-4. Cam Newton has not played well. If you want to talk about a team winning despite their quarterback, the Panthers. Now, it's not the Bortles situation entirely, because Cam does have games where he looks great. Right? He looks great. But Cam has had this season more games where he has looked awful than games where he has looked great. And the Panthers continue to win at 4-2. If the Panthers are capable of winning football games where Cam looks awful against better teams, there is no good reason to suggest that they would lose to the Bears. I take the Panthers in this game. The Titans and the Browns. Mariota played poorly to start the Monday Night Football game last week against the Colts, but then got better as the game went on. Ultimately, the Titans were able to put the nail in the coffin and put the Colts away. But a lot of questions came up because that offense is very streaky and has trouble getting into gear a lot of times. With that being said, I expect Marcus Mariota to find his stride. I don't expect the Titans to lose to the Browns, who are currently 0-6. The Browns, by the way, are a great 0-6. They're a wonderful-looking 0-6. I watch them play, and they look like a team that is trying to win that just can't. And I don't know what to tell you there, right? They're not one of those teams that, oh, we've just given up. They just can't win. They're just not talented enough. So DeShone Kizer is the starter in Cleveland again. Just not going to be enough to beat the Titans. Titans improve to 4-3. Browns fall to 0-7, in my opinion. The Saints and the Packers. The Packers playing their first post-Aaron Rodgers game with Brett Hundley at the helm. And I don't know if the Packers are interested in going after Colin Kaepernick. I don't know if he's a good fit for them, et cetera, because we can always have that conversation, even though, who's a good fit for anybody? Brandon Weeden exists and got signed somewhere. So there's that. And Brandon Weeden's not a good fit anywhere. So I see a situation where the Packers could get desperate enough to start making some phone calls that maybe other teams wouldn't be willing to make once you actually see Brett Hundley play football. Because it's funny listening to Mike McCarthy in these press conferences express why it is that he thinks that Brett Hundley is qualified to be the quarterback of his football team. And the man is grasping at straws. He is grasping at straws. He is trying his level best to explain why it is that Brett Hundley is qualified to lead his football team and can't really come up with any good reasons. He mentored Scott Tolzien. What does that mean? Wait, he mentored a guy that also stinks? Explain to me how that's a helpful descriptor there. Mike McCarthy is grasping at straws. Very difficult situation that he is in right now. Saints beat the Packers and improved to 4-2. They're 4-point favorites, and I don't even know why that's a thing, right? Like the Packers, the whole Packers team was Aaron Rodgers, right? Like the defense is going to suffer as a result of this too. If you can't sustain drives and your defense is already suspect, and then you ask that defense to go out there and sustain high levels of play, good luck. Good luck. 4:05 on Fox. Cowboys, Niners. The boys are 2-3. The Niners are 0-6. Dak Prescott looking good. Looking good. He started off the season fairly slow. Ezekiel Elliott, by the way, is unsuspended. Right. A New York court reversed the suspension that was reinstated. So Ezekiel Elliott will be playing the 49ers. And once you know that Ezekiel Elliott is playing and that Dak Prescott is playing, there really isn't much left to know. The Niners are not very good. I do like their young quarterback, CJ Beathard. Beathard? It's a very interesting name. I've actually never heard his name said out loud. I've watched a lot of his highlights on YouTube, though. A lot of his Iowa State highlights. Or a lot of his Iowa highlights. I've watched a lot of those on YouTube. He was very good in college. I like him a lot. And I thought last week he was very good against Washington. I don't think he's good enough to beat the Cowboys, though. So I'll take the Cowboys. Seahawks, Giants. The Giants scored last week. Their first victory of the season. The Seahawks are a team that looks like they're on the decline. They don't look like a very good football team. Do I expect them to lose to the Giants, though, who are missing about all of their talented offensive players outside of Evan Ingram? No, I do not. Right? Eli doesn't look great. I just think the Seahawks win this game. They're better. The Broncos and the Chargers. The Broncos, surprisingly, were the team that lost to the Giants. And the Chargers have beaten the Giants already. And I think Trevor Siemian has reached the extent of what he can do for a football team. And as the season wears on and your defense starts to take some licks, some hits, and some damage, I don't necessarily believe that this is a situation that gets better for the Denver Broncos. Trevor Siemian is an average quarterback at best, and he hasn't been at his best this season. I think he gets outdueled by Phillip Rivers. I think that the Chargers get this thing going early on enough, and I think that they beat the Broncos. I do. And if the Chargers beat the Broncos, they will improve to 3-4. And at one point, a winless team that looked absolutely horrific will look like a respectable NFL team, as the Chargers seem to always do every season. Start off terribly, wind up pulling it together somewhere in the middle of the season before tragically and dramatically falling apart at the very, very end of the season. So here we are in very familiar Chargers territory. Very, very familiar. I just don't believe enough in Trevor Siemian. I'm going to take the Chargers over the Broncos in this game. Bengals, Steelers. The Steelers are struggling, and they're suffering. Are they struggling and suffering enough to lose to the Bengals? That is the question that I have to pose to you today, and the answer is no, not really. I understand that Ben Roethlisberger has not looked great at any point this season, but they still have Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown. And the quarterback of the Bengals, when last I checked, is still Andy Dalton, who's thrown almost as many interceptions at 6 as he has touchdowns at 7. And I think that Andy Dalton's trick of let me just throw the ball up to A.J. Green works against a lot of teams. It does not work against the Steelers, who are very familiar with you and know exactly who you are and what you do. The Sunday night football game, which was supposed to be exciting, and when you looked at the schedule at the beginning of the year, this was one of the more exciting games. Super Bowl rematch, Patriots, Falcons, 3-2 Falcons, 4-2 Patriots. If you had told me that that was going to be the record coming in, I would not ever have believed you, and I would have been entirely wrong. Matt Ryan has not looked great this season. 6 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. Devontae Freeman has looked very mortal at points, and Julio Jones has been kept in check by more teams than you would suspect. Meanwhile, the Patriots, Tom Brady can't throw the deep ball anymore, doesn't have receivers that he is super familiar with, and this offensive line appears to be some kind of a shambles. Also, the Patriots' defense is horrifyingly bad. The Falcons might actually be able to get back on track in this football game. I think the Falcons win the Super Bowl rematch for whatever it is that it's worth. And I think that this kickstarts the rest of their season with them finding out who they are against the defense that'll give you plenty of opportunities to figure it out. The Monday Night Football game, which I won't get too far into, in large part because it is on Monday night, and so we'll have a show Monday, so I'll get to break that down a little bit more then, but involves my favorite Washington professional team against the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't know what to make of Washington. I don't. I have no idea. They're not bad, but I don't know where on the scale of good they wind up being, right? Last week, Kirk Cousins played like booty, and they managed to win because they were playing the 49ers. The running back, Chris Thompson, is an underrated beast, being both the leading rusher of the team with 175 yards and 2 touchdowns, and the leading receiver of the team this year with 340 yards and 2 touchdowns. So Chris Thompson is the offense, right? Like, that guy cannot get hurt. And we didn't know that he was capable of being a first down type back until about halfway through the season at this moment. They didn't even know they had that in the guy, right? And if it weren't for him, Kirk Cousins' bid for millions and millions of dollars this summer would be up in smoke. Instead, Chris Thompson has stepped up and been huge and has opened up a lot for the Washington offense in a way that, you know, has made them look pretty decent. But are they better than the Eagles? And the answer to that question, of course, is no. Carson Wentz has been playing out of his mind. 13 touchdowns on the year for the young Mr. Wentz. They're getting just enough from all of their weapons all over the place, including Zach Ertz. We are actually getting good football performances from Nelson Aguilar. I don't know what to make of that. Hopefully one of you does, because I have no clue. And the Redskins have suffered a lot of injuries defensively. Josh Norman and now Jonathan Allen, the great Alabama product. And so I'm going to take the Eagles on this one. The Eagles were better than the Redskins before the injuries to their better defensive players. After, I can't imagine that this goes well for Washington, that Monday Night Football game on ESPN. So let's jump back around to the Thursday night game that is going down tonight, 8:25. That game is going down. So in about an hour. And it's the Raiders, it's the Chiefs. The Chiefs have looked very good. They didn't look very good last week against the Steelers. But, you know, if that's going to be the game that you look to prove that the Chiefs have finally been exposed, then, you know, go on and have fun with that until it proves to be ultimately wrong. The Raiders will be wearing their Color Rush uniforms. Derek Carr is returning from a back injury, which I just think is insane. I think that is absolutely insane. But you have to try and win this division if you can, if you're the Raiders. You're still very much in play. The Broncos aren't running away with it. The Chargers are somehow still in it. miraculously. And only the Chiefs really lead it. So you could try and see if you could get a wild card spot here. This is an important divisional game. If you can beat the Chiefs and you hope that one of your other divisional rivals beat the Chiefs, suddenly everyone is back in it. I just don't see that happening. I like Andy Reid's offense, and I like Andy Reid to bounce back against a Raiders team that has not shown much of a propensity to stop anybody at all. The Chiefs, meanwhile, defensively are capable of stopping people, and I don't know how good Derek Carr is going to be coming back from a broken back. Dude hurt his back. So I don't expect that to be as good as, I don't expect this game to be particularly good, but that's in large part due to the injury. But I do expect the Chiefs to be really, really good. And I think that they get back on track and look like the team that's been buzzsawing their way through half the NFL. Clutch with Keon Rose on 92.7 FM, Nooga Radio, and NoogaRadio.com. John Calipari thinks that if the NBA gets rid of their one-and-done rule, it doesn't hurt him in Kentucky basketball. It can only make them better. And he's right. I'll tell you why. Next.
Traffic, news, and information. Nooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4 and 92.7 FM. 3, 2, 1. Chattanooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4. 92.7 FM's news now.
Despite statements from concerned citizens, the county commission on Wednesday voted 7-2 to approve rezoning for construction and debris landfill in Harrison. The only two commissioners to vote against were Chester Bankston and Joe Graham. This is just the first step in permitting for the landfill. There was some opposition. Complainants wearing green shirts were unhappy with the placement of the proposed landfill. A man who is a victim of a shooting at the in-town suites on Lee Highway is now a defendant in a drug case. Joshua Eaker, who's 28, appeared before General Sessions Court Judge Gary Starnes. The police say they found half a kilogram of meth under his passenger seat in his car and $4,300 on his person. The investigators believe that he was shot when a drug deal went wrong on the second floor of the in-town suites. Russell Stroud, Nooga Radio News Talk 92.7, now.
Traffic, news, and information. Nooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4 and 92.7 FM. Broadcasting live to over 1 million souls in Chattanooga, the Tennessee Valley, and beyond on frequency modulation 92.7. Sean Hannity. 25,000 watts on digital FM 95.3 HD4. CBS Radio News. NASCAR, Bloomberg Markets, David Tulis, streaming strong at NoogaRadio.com. Live on YouTube and Facebook. Nooga Radio, News Talk 92.7. Chattanooga Radio.
Goss Insurance. Yes, we are local. And no, we don't have an 800 number. In fact, our mobile numbers are on our business cards. We live, work, play, and worship in Chattanooga, and we would love to help with your insurance. Business, auto, home, life insurance. Call now, save money. Call Goss Insurance for all your insurance needs. Goss Insurance, 875-2500. 875-2500.
Nooga Radio, Digital FM 95.3 HD4 and 92.7 FM knows your opinion is important. So call 800-8949. Agree or disagree. Call 423-800-8949. 800-8949. Nooga Radio, 92.7 FM and 95.3 HD4. News Talk Nooga Radio.
So Nick Saban said that if we had the college football playoff, this would only be bad for college football because people would stop paying attention to bowl games and bowl-eligible teams. Clutch with Keon Rose on 92.7 FM, Nooga Radio, NoogaRadio.com. And I agreed with Nick Saban, if you recall. It was a long time ago that he said it. I agreed with Nick Saban, and I also said, good. Bowl games are exhibition games that we have allowed ourselves to be deceived into the fact that they matter. They don't. They don't. Bowl games are an extra non-conference game against a really good school, right? I think some of these higher level bowl games mean something. But you can't tell me that all of these bowl games mean something. Like, I don't care about most of them. I don't. And so the fact that we're getting bowl fatigue doesn't mean anything to me, right? Like, I want to pay attention to the teams at the top of the sport. And that's me in every sport. I want to pay attention to the teams at the top. Right? Like, you could, as an investor, concern yourself with every company, but really you should concern yourself with the companies that are going to make you money. That's how investing works. And if I'm going to invest my time into watching sports, just tell me who's good, right? The teams that can win a title. That's what I want to know. I'm not very much interested in someone breaking down what Oregon is doing in the middle of the year. If I want to watch Oregon, I'll watch Oregon. I don't need to pay attention to all of these other things, these other teams that are playing football that may or may not matter to me. Right? Like, I'm not interested in a middle of the year Virginia Tech, North Carolina, if Virginia Tech and North Carolina can't be playing for a postseason college football playoff berth. Like, I'm not interested in it. Nick Saban was right, but he said it like it was a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. And by the way, they televise all these bowl games, and we still sit there and watch it. It's not like we've decided, oh no, the only thing that matters now is the college football playoff, so I suppose I'll never watch these bowl games again. Like, we still sit on our butt and watch a bunch of bowl games, and when they're good, we like them. I just don't focus in on season meeting between Minnesota and whoever, because they can't win a title. So I don't care. I don't. I'm not going to pretend like I care. I watch way too many different sports. You understand? I watch the NFL, and I watch college football, and I watch Major League Baseball, and I watch the NBA, and I watch college hoops, and I watch golf. I watch tennis. There are too many sports that I like to be trying to figure out who's in the middle of the pack of these sports and then come up with convincing reasons why I should care about them. I don't. And I want to know who can win a title, who's got a shot. Like, I could, in the NBA, I'll talk about everybody, right? I'll talk about absolutely everybody. But there is a point in the NBA season where you as a listener no longer care about the Brooklyn Nets. Because they stink. They're not good. They're promising. They've got a lot of young, talented players. I like D'Angelo Russell on their team. I think he's a very good football player or basketball player. But I let's not be crazy out here. I think that D'Angelo Russell's really good. There is a point in the year where I no longer care about D'Angelo Russell. D'Angelo Russell is not on a good basketball team, and D'Angelo Russell does not play for the team I watch. So what do I care about D'Angelo Russell for? There's going to be a point in the year where I stop caring about Lonzo Ball. Because the Lakers aren't good. Promising, perhaps. They're not good. And they play in a tough conference, and they're not going to make the playoffs. I'm not concerning myself with it. Right? I'm watching the good teams. We are already at that point in the NFL season where I figure out who can't make the playoffs. Now, it's hard in the NFL. It's harder to do. But we've already reached that point where, like, nobody really wants to talk about the 49ers. They're bad. Who cares? They're 0-6. Like, nobody wants to talk about the Giants. They can't make the playoffs. Right? And if Brett Hundley looks particularly terrible for the Packers, we're going to stop caring about the Packers too. Like, you get 3/4 of the way through the NFL season, and you can start figuring out who is irrelevant entirely. There's some teams right now that are 2-4, 2-3. They're not really mathematically done yet. We can go ahead and bury the Colts. We can go ahead and bury the Bears. I know the Dolphins are 3-2. I've already buried them in my heart. You could just bury some teams. Like, you just know. It's not worth talking about you. And we treat it like it's some major grievance, right? Like we treat it like it's some big problem somehow that we're not paying attention to these middle of the pack schools. First off, the college football junkies are paying attention to the middle of the pack schools. But now I've got an even 19, 20 teams that are still capable of making the college football playoff. And I can just focus on them, right? That's what's important to me. I focus on them. I cover the SEC. I pay attention to the SEC, and we talk about the SEC. And then the 20 schools that can make the college football playoff, we talk about them. And that's it. That's all I want to talk about. That's all I want to know. I'm not interested in all this other, tell me in the middle of the season. Tell me, how is Kansas doing? I don't care. Nobody cares. When college hoops roll around, you get halfway through the year in college hoops, and nobody cares what on earth LSU is doing. They're bad at basketball. Who cares? I mean, that's just what it is. That is just what it is. And Nick Saban was right, but I just don't see it as a bad thing. Clutch with Keon Rose on Nooga Radio and NoogaRadio.com. I'm going to shift gears here a little bit and move on over to college hoops, where John Calipari is not as worried about the one-and-done rule being changed as you might think, right? That the NBA is considering requiring basketball players to go to school for 2 years instead of just 1. Not unlike baseball. Now, I don't know if they're going to do the rules entirely like baseball, because with baseball, you can go to Major League Baseball straight out of high school, or you can go to college for 2 years. And if you go to college, you have to be there for 2 years and then go to the pros if you want to after that. So I understand entirely the idea and the notion that this is somehow going to make Kentucky basketball worse. After all, John Calipari has feasted on one-and-done guys. John Calipari has recruited very well, and he's recruited very well because as soon as the one-and-done rule was instituted, John Calipari was the first guy to go, hey, look, I exist to get you into the NBA. Would you like to play for me? Because if you play for me, I can get you into the NBA. And by the way, John Calipari has not been lying to any of these kids. John Calipari has gotten more players in the NBA than just about anybody else coaching college basketball. John Calipari, to his resume at this point, has Anthony Davis and Karl Anthony Towns and John Wall and DeMarcus Cousins and Willie Cauley-Stein and the list, and Nerlens Noel, and the list goes on and on and on forever and ever and ever. John Calipari has been that good about getting guys into the league, right? You can Rajon Rondo and Derrick Rose, and it just goes on and on and on and on, right? Like this goes all the way back to his Memphis days. You can go back there and fight. John Calipari has been that good. But we have wondered, because John Calipari has coached a lot of really great basketball players, and to this point really doesn't have the hardware to show for it. And the question we have asked of a lot of these guys is, can you imagine if John Calipari was able to have a year 2 Anthony Davis? Can you imagine if John Calipari had Karl Anthony Towns for a second season? Can you imagine if Boogie Cousins and Eric Bledsoe and John Wall were able to stay together for another year? Do you think those guys win a national championship at Kentucky? Because I think that there's a very high chance that they do. I think so. What you are giving John Calipari is the opportunity to still recruit under the guise of, I'm getting all of y'all in the NBA, but then be able to keep his players around for a second year, which he was not required to do ever at all. Yes, it makes Kentucky basketball better. And it doesn't make Kentucky basketball a little bit better. It makes Kentucky basketball a lot better, because they have been the leader in this one-and-done stuff for a very long time. And all that happens is now you just expand the factory a little bit more. Coach K and John Calipari are the two biggest benefactors of it, because while Coach K was a late adopter to the one-and-done rule, Coach K likes winning too much to shy away from something that was giving him the ability to win. So yeah, Coach K went after guys who were going to go to college for a year and then bounce on over to the NBA. And he was totally cool with it. And he has won a title with it. And he has had some very great NBA players on his roster. But can you imagine? Because Kyrie Irving was on Coach K's team very briefly. I think he played a grand total of 3 games for Duke before injuring his foot, and he was still the #1 overall pick because he was that good. That being said, Can you imagine if Kyrie was able to get healthy and then play for Coach K? How good Duke could have been with Kyrie for a whole season? Hey, man, the NBA thinks that this is going to help the NBA, and maybe it will, right? Like maybe you have more guys who have played more in college, get an extra year to mature and all that. Maybe this does help. But the people who believe that this fixing of the one and done rule is somehow going to help the college game and make the college game more balanced, you're crazy. This is how the rich get richer. You are essentially saying, do the same thing that you are always doing. Only now you get 2 years to do it instead of 1, right? Calipari is still saying, look, you can come to Kentucky, you can build your brand, you can do whatever it is that you have to do, and you've got 2 years to do it. Right? Because when players play for 1 year, which they're required to do, and then go to the NBA, they are doing only what is economically feasible for them. Right? What makes sense for them. That's what they are doing. That why risk another year of injury? But now if you have to stay for 2 years, you help the Coach K's and the John Caliparis and the other major programs keep a guy that they already liked for yet another year. And the other smaller schools that have managed to win by going after guys who want to be in college for 3 or 4 years, the other smaller schools that do that, are at a little bit more of a disadvantage because their advantage of experience does not necessarily hold up. Their advantage of experience is now diminished somewhat. So yeah, we're going to drastically change the landscape of college basketball again. And I'm not entirely certain what it is that we gain out of it. Clutch with Keon Rose on 92.7 FM, NoogaRadio.com. So you've got that. Now, Florida's not very good at scoring points, as I have mentioned many times on this show. Florida fans not thrilled with my assessment of their football team, but I don't know what it is that you call that thing that they put out on the field and call football. I wouldn't call it fun. I wouldn't call it entertaining. I wouldn't call it efficient. I would barely call it effective. I suppose if you score, it's effective on some level, but I would barely call what their offense is effective. And I was reading an article on SEC Country by Ryan Young, and look, it's a great idea that you probably should take Malik Zaire, who you made this gigantic stink about recruiting and bringing over to your school, and putting that man out there and seeing what it is that he can do for your offense. Because right now, you've got nothing. You have no running game. I like Felipe Franks. I think he's a good young quarterback, and I think the future for him looks very bright. But I also think that he's a freshman. He looks like a freshman quarterback. He plays like a freshman quarterback. He makes inexperienced, stupid mistakes like freshman quarterbacks are off to make. Why not play Malik Zaire and see what it is that the guy can do for your offense? Because right now it looks horrific. It looks beyond unwatchable. Even when Florida wins, like, I don't feel good that I watched them play. I watched LSU and Florida play a couple of weeks ago, and I didn't feel good watching that game at all. Like, if watching two teams play football could make you physically ill, that's what would happen to you if you watch that game. You're watching two teams that can't score, not score. And it's only because Florida was particularly bad at scoring and missed their extra point that they lost that game at all. Their record is deceptive, right? Like 3-3 makes you think like, oh yeah, the Gators. Like, no, they haven't played anybody good. They're still offensively inept. And you had to wait for a rule change. You understand? You had to wait for a rule change to get Malik Zaire to be on your football team. And if you're going to wait for a rule change to get Malik Zaire to be on your football team, and then you get Malik Zaire on your football team and you don't like what you see, but then the rest of your offense is also something that you don't like what you see, you might as well trot the guy out there and see what he's capable of for like a whole game. Because Malik Zaire didn't get a whole game. He didn't get a whole game. I understand you might be ultimately disappointed by what it is that's happening on your offense, but I mean, you put together the offense. Nobody made you put together that nonsense offense that you are currently trotting out there. You put it together. You might as well see what you've got in some of these pieces. So people on Twitter are getting after Skip Bayless for a tweet that he had. Gordon Hayward dislocated his ankle and broke his leg all in one play. And it was horrific, possibly the worst injury I've seen in a while. I tried to avoid watching it, and then because I was on social media, I did wind up watching Gordon Hayward just destroy his whole foot, and made me feel sick, as it made everyone feel sick. But Skip Bayless, in the moment that Gordon Hayward injured his leg, Skip Bayless said, well, the path to the finals is now easier for LeBron. And everyone buried Skip Bayless for doing that. Right? Like, Gordon Hayward was still writhing in pain on the basketball court. The stadium doctors and paramedics were helping Gordon Hayward and doing all of the things that they did, by the way, to make sure that his leg was fine and that they saved his leg, basically. I mean, the surgery went well for him, but from what I understand, they did a whole lot of things in stadium. They were on it, and they were really good, that helped to prevent Gordon Hayward's injury from being any worse than it was. And I don't know how it could be worse. The guy had his leg just kind of hanging off, his foot just kind of hanging off his leg, still in the shoe. Like, I don't know how it could get worse than what it was, but they kept it from being worse than what it was. And Gordon Hayward may be able to recover and play basketball at a high level again, even next year, right? Because he's going to be out for this entire season, and maybe by the end of next summer, maybe even Gordon Hayward can come back, and it's very possible. But I look at a situation like this, and I go, how soon is too soon to talk about the ramifications of an athlete's injury? I think that's a very valid question, because I feel like Skip Bayless was not trying to be callous. And it's very easy to jump down the throat of Skip Bayless on this kind of stuff, because Skip Bayless does present to himself a level of foolishness to where you cannot even take him seriously with half of the things that come out of his face. And this is one of those situations where, because he has ruined his own credibility to a certain extent, people were tired of hearing it. Let's Skip Bayless. Nobody wants to hear about your LeBron analysis while there's a guy writhing around on the ground in pain. But at what point is it not too soon? Because Skip Bayless can't do anything involving Gordon Hayward's physical situation, right? Not a thing at all. There's nothing that Skip Bayless can do for Gordon Hayward. Skip Bayless is not a medical doctor, so he can't comment on the nature of Gordon Hayward's injury. He doesn't know. Skip Bayless doesn't know how long he's going to be out. Skip Bayless, but like it seems like officially on Twitter, and if you just look at a lot of the athletes tweeting, the only proper response during Gordon Hayward's injury was, hey, thoughts and prayers out to Gordon Hayward and his family. And I'm like, how long does that go on before you have to talk about the ramifications of what that injury means for the NBA, especially if you are somebody like Skip Bayless who covers the NBA? How long do you have to wait? Because you saw all the tweets, there like a lot of prayer emojis. And then one tweet from Dwight Howard, where Dwight Howard tweeted, carry him, Lord. And it just felt like Dwight Howard was tweeting like Gordon Hayward died. He didn't die. He just broke his leg, which is also not fun. But let's pump the brakes on, come on. Like, Dwight Howard made it seem like Gordon Hayward was dying. But when is it time to start talking about the ramifications of this thing? Because that's Skip Bayless's job. That's the only time that Skip Bayless is actually useful. And not just Skip Bayless, by the way. Me too. The only time when any member of the sports media is actually useful is when we start talking about the ramifications of these things inside of the world of sports, right? We can talk to you about when politics and sports intersect, I think, because everybody is a political being, and therefore everybody has political ideas. And when the road of politics and sports intersect, everybody has an opinion, and I believe everyone should be informed in their life and should have an opinion. I think that when the road of sports and medicine intersect, I don't have a medicine opinion. Like, I have no medical opinions whatsoever. But can I at some point say I've expressed my empathy for Gordon Hayward? Now it's time to start talking about what it means that Gordon Hayward is injured. I don't think that it takes away from the fact that everybody feels bad for Gordon Hayward. There was not like somebody was out there laughing or filled with glee with that injury. If you saw that injury and it didn't make you immediately sick to your stomach, you don't have a heart. Right? And I felt really bad for Gordon. But it does mean that LeBron's path to the Eastern Conference Finals gets easier. And not only that, it means that things open up if you're the Wizards. I think things open up if you're the Raptors. I think that the Eastern Conference got a lot easier for some teams because Gordon Hayward got hurt. My issue here is that, yeah, when is it too soon? Now, I do think that Skip Bayless not waiting until Gordon Hayward was even off the floor. Like, Gordon Hayward was still out there writhing in pain, and Skip Bayless was like, well, looks like LeBron's going to the finals again. Like, that does seem awful callous. I think you can wait until the guy is on the stretcher. I do think that's possible. But I do empathize with Skip Bayless here, because what else was Skip Bayless supposed to talk about? Skip Bayless only exists to do one thing, and he was doing it. Skip Bayless is only there to talk about sports and the ramifications of things on sports. That's it. That's all Skip Bayless is qualified to do. And he was doing it. Is there a point at which it is too soon to do the thing that you do? I don't even have a good answer for that question. I just legitimately am curious. Because I saw Skip Bayless's tweet, and it did not register to me personally as nearly as offensive as other players took it in the league. I mean, they just buried Skip Bayless. Now, Skip Bayless, again, has not engendered himself with everybody in the league and has said a number of foolish things that you can only identify as particularly idiotic as they would only come out of the mouth of Skip Bayless. And so when Skip Bayless says something, I believe he commands a higher level of scrutiny from NBA players than most people. Because Skip Bayless is a profoundly upsetting person. But Skip Bayless was doing the only thing that Skip Bayless is actually, like, good at. And that's not a shot at Skip. Me too. Clutch with Keon Rose on Nooga Radio, NoogaRadio.com, 92.7 FM. Remember, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. Stay clutch.
The Tennessee Valley's news talk leader, Nooga Radio, digital FM 95.3 HD4 and 92.7 FM. 3, 2, 1. Chattanooga Radio, digital FM 95.3 HD4, 92.7 FM's news now.
Despite statements from concerned citizens, the County Commission on Wednesday voted 7-2 to approve rezoning for construction and debris landfill in Harrison. The only two commissioners to vote against were Chester Bankston and Joe Graham. This is just the first step in permitting for the landfill. There was some opposition. Complainants wearing green shirts were unhappy with the placement of the proposed landfill. A man who is a victim of a shooting at the In-Town Suites on Lee Highway is now a defendant in a drug case. Joshua Eaker, who's 28, appeared before General Sessions Court Judge Gary Starnes. The police say they found half a kilogram of meth under his passenger seat in his car and $4,300 on his person. The investigators believe that he was shot when a drug deal went wrong on the second floor of the In-Town Suites. Russell Stroud, Nooga Radio News Talk 92.7 now.
The Tennessee Valley's news talk leader, Nooga Radio, digital FM 95.3 HD4 and 92.7 FM.
Power Hour News at noon and 9 being brought to you by Greg's Sandwich Works, featuring the best cuts of meats for your sandwich. Greg's Super Spuds, wraps and the most delicious salads in Chattanooga. Greg's Sandwich Works, 6337 East Brainerd Road, Chattanooga.
As an independent agent, Goss represents more than 50 of the leading companies. Goss does the shopping and you save. Goss Insurance for your auto, business, home, and life insurance. 875-2500 Goss Insurance.
Hey, dude, check this out. Have you ever seen one so big?
Whoa, look at the size of that.
There's a little itty-bitty one.
Wow, that's really small.
They have them big, small, and everything in between. You'll always find the biggest variety of knives at the knife shop at Frost Cutlery in Ottawa. We're talking about over 40 brands of knives, including Benchmade, WR Case & Sons, Booker, and all the Frost Cutlery brands. Now, Sam, you've been to the cutlery shop. Is it amazing?
Spectacular. The knife shop at Frost Cutlery in Ottawa. They have knives, swords, kitchen knives, ammo, and reloading supplies, plus survival gear.
It's the knife shop at Frost Cutlery, open 7 days a week. Hey, girls, you're going to love this. We're going to the knife shop. Hey, let's not tell them they have ammo and loading supplies. The knife shop at Frost Cutlery opens 7 days a week. You'll always find the biggest variety of knives. You're going to love the knife shop at Frost Cutlery in Ottawa. The knife shop.
And tell them David Tulis sent you.
Hi, this is Eric Felton. Taxes, accounting, business advice. I've got a neat brochure, 12 ways to improve your business profits. Come on by for a free consultation and we'll give you a copy. E.J. Pelton Company, 332-3339.
Cash, 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 and more cash. Watch it gush out of your TV. Rick Davis is on national TV. Wow. Golden